Hey y'all, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Vashti Sarah, and you are tuned in to another episode of All the Things where we literally talk about all the things. So, since we're talking about all the things, let's talk politics. Every Life is America's pro-life diaper and wipes company. My family absolutely loves them. There's no harsh toxins, there's no chemicals. It's perfectly safe for your little one. We love Every Life, their mission, their vision, everything about them. Use my code VASHTI10 for 10% off your first order. That is VASHTI10 for 10% off your first order. On Friday, August 16th, the Supreme Court voted 5-4 and rejected one of Biden's administration emergency requests to enforce portions of a new rule that includes protection from discrimination for transgender students under Title IX. So this request would have permitted biological men in women's bathrooms, locker rooms, dorms in 10 states where there are state level and local level rules in place to prevent it. This rule was issued in April and then clarified that Title IX's ban on sex discrimination in schools covers discrimination based on gender identity, sexual orientation, and pregnancy or related conditions. The rule took effect on August 1st, and for the first time, the law stated that discrimination based on sex includes conduct related to a person's gender identity. That's a lot to unpack, but in simple terms, essentially, the Supreme Court was not in favor of this request. And, you know, this petitioners had argued that physical fitness tests demonstrate that there's a difference between men and women at every age, which is huge that society is making that distinction, because with a lot of the LGBTQ movement and the narrative that's out there, you know, especially in politics, at least most politicians, they try to stay in the middle ground just so as to not offend one side or the other, but also, I mean, it's a voting ploy, you know, to get as most voters as possible. So I'll just stay in the middle. And if I stay there, then I'm safe there. But I mean, this is huge. This is a big deal that the Supreme Court rejected this rule, and it protects women, especially in women's sports. I'm sure you've heard of the many different examples of, I can't remember the girl off the top of my head, but one of the instances was she was changing in the locker room, and all girls, you know, are changing together, and this guy just strips all the way down commando because he identifies as a woman, and his genitals were just out in the open, just for everyone to see. And there's no privacy. There's no line where, you know, where men and women are separated. And the fact that the Supreme Court rejected this request is huge, and it protects women like her who, and just in general, men and women, and keeps that separated and that entity sacred. You know, it's amazing to me because the Supreme Court know what a woman is, but they don't want to say what a woman is, and it's pretty comical. It's like they want to celebrate women, they want the rights for women, but at the same time they don't want to outrightly say it. Why? Again, so that they can remain in the middle ground, in the middle playing field to play things safe. But I don't want to harper on the negative. I want to harper on the positive that, you know, even though it wasn't a landslide of a win, it was 5-4, which I will say that is pretty alarming at that the votes were 5-4. 5 voted against the rule and 4 voted for this new rule. And it just shows that it just shows where we are as a nation and what can happen in the future. Now, thankfully, this bill didn't get, or not this bill, but this request didn't get passed. But who's to say that another request comes about similar to this one? They just change up the words a little bit. They just change up the requirements a little bit. And that one does get passed. And as Christians, I think more than anything, we have to be praying for our government. We have to be praying for those who are seated in the Supreme Court, who are making, who are voting for these rules and voting towards these different changes. And, it just shows the urgency that we should have. I mean, I get it. Not everyone wants to be a part of politics. It's a sticky subject. People lose families over this topic. People end up in, major arguments, lose friends, end up in divorce over this topic. But reality is we can't run away from it. I'm not saying that this should be something that we talk about all the time, but it should be something that we address, and it should be something that we pray about, and it should be something we are confident in. I think as voters, Christian voters especially, we should be very sure in what we believe and why we believe it. Matter of fact is, this is a win for women. This is a win for free speech. And, this rule of law and common sense is just, it just shows that in the room, at least 5 individuals had common sense. 5. And sadly, 4 did not. And I don't know if the 4 just didn't think through, what about my daughter, or what about my granddaughter, or what about my niece, and I don't want to make this solely a female thing, but it is females, or there are females that are the ones that are being targeted in this rule had it passed. I know I would not want to be in a bathroom changing and a man just strips in front of me because he identifies as a woman that day, or he feels like a woman that day. I don't want my daughter to grow up in that type of society, and I'm sure things will look even tremendously more different during her time whenever she's older. But the fact that we are here is scary. But also the fact that the rule was voted against is amazing. And that just shows the power of prayer. And I'm not saying that, it's because we prayed as Christians, that rule didn't get voted in place. But I do believe as believers, we do have a say, we do have power, so to speak, in what happens in the economy, what happens to this nation. If we become passive towards the government, if we become passive towards just politics, then we will have passive results. We will have passive results that will not just affect us, but affect our children. We have to be aggressive. That's just it. We have to be aggressive in how we speak, what we stand up for, and being just having that assurance and confidence in what you believe and why you believe it. Too often we're easily swayed left and right. We want to float upstream with everyone else because we don't want to ruffle feathers. We don't want to offend people. We don't want to not be liked. But reality is we were created to be the salt and light of the earth. We were created for friction. We were created to disrupt what people consider is good because it gratifies self. What people consider is great for them, but in reality, it's sin. We were created and designed as humans to ruffle feathers. We were created in this fallen world. God called us to stand out and be different. And if standing out and being different translates to you being rejected, being called a bigot, being made fun of, being, what's it called? Being, not losing your freedom of speech, but being told to, be quiet, you don't know what you're saying, then you're doing your part. You're standing up for justice. You're standing up for truth. You're standing up for righteousness. So I just wanted to mention that, men playing women's sports, and because that's a whole issue in this rule. And that's why they brought this rule about, is encouraging or wanting to open that opportunity for men to play women's sports. And let's be honest, men and women are completely different. Our capabilities are completely different. 7 Weeks is America's pro-life coffee. It's premium coffee delivered right to your doorsteps. All roast available, and it's absolutely delicious. Start your morning off with 7 Weeks coffee. It's not just drinking coffee, it's drinking coffee with a purpose. Use my code VASHTI10 for 10% off your first order. That is VASHTI10 for 10% off your first order. In another episode, I'll probably talk about the feminist movement. I think the feminist movement specifically ruined manhood in a number of areas, but one of them is it's allowing men to think that they can play the woman's role, and vice versa, the women feeling as if they can play the man's role. We have women who no longer want to take the role of nurturers, and we have men staying at home, women being the breadwinner. And I'm not knocking on that at all, but the structure of what a family unit should look like has changed drastically, and we don't have manly men anymore. We have manly women and womanly men. But I do believe the feminist movement pushed a lot of these ideologies and has society where it is today. Now, not saying that is why society is in the state it is today, but the feminist movement contributed to that. So anyways, huge win for women, huge win for freedom of speech. And just want to encourage y'all to, as much as politics can become toxic, just filter through what you listen to and pray. Pray as believers. The power of prayer is it's very effective. You have to pray for your government. You have to pray for those who are in leadership, and we're called to do so. The Lord placed them there, one way or another. The Lord placed them there. So, anyways, I will see y'all in the next episode. Like, share, comment, do all the things. See y'all next time.